Okay, look, I know making a video about things I hope are in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon isn't exactly the most original thing anymore. Since the game's reveal last week, there's been tons of videos talking about and theorizing on almost every aspect they might contain. Will there be new Alolan forms? Will gyms return? Is there going to be new islands? Could Lily be the champion? Will Guzma say y'all are stupid again? And so on. Because I've been pouring all my effort into a brand new regional video, which yes, to all the people who keep asking, I am working on the next one, I wasn't able to get this video out last week when I originally wanted to. Even though I'm a little bit late to the party on this, I still thought it would be fun to put my own wish list for the games out there. So today, I present to you my top 5 things that I want in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. From new areas to potentially new gameplay mechanics, today I'll be counting down some of the things I hope are awaiting us when we eventually return to Alola this fall. Now before we get started, just a couple of quick notes. Number 1 is that I'm making this video fairly soon after the initial announcement for Ultra Sun and Moon, which means that not really anything about the games has been revealed yet. Because of this, all the things on my list could possibly be confirmed or deconfirmed at any time, so just keep that in mind. The second and final thing is that this list is all my opinion, and if you disagree, feel free to share your own wants for Ultra Sun and Moon in the comments section below. I'm sure we all want to see different things in these Ultra games, and it's always interesting to read what other people's wish lists are made of. Alright, I think that's enough for introductions. Let's get this video officially started and take a look at my number 5. Number 5, a completed Dream Park. In Pokemon Sun and Moon, there's an area just off of Route 8 called the Dream Park, which is literally just a clearing with a man, a trailer, and a bunch of construction equipment. It doesn't really feel like a park, and that's because the guy you meet in the clearing is still trying to turn it into one. As it turns out, this guy is a massive fan of fossil Pokemon, and has a dream of wanting to turn this entire area into a giant park for fossil Pokemon to run around in. I don't see how that idea could backfire on anybody. Jurassic Park references aside, I think a completed version of the Dream Park could be a really stellar place to have in Ultra Sun and Moon. The entire area could be revamped into a fossil Pokemon paradise and offer a really unique chance for you to actually capture fossil Pokemon in the wild rather than having to revive them from stones. Now I should mention that there was a very interesting location in some of the footage we've seen already that showed off what appeared to be a Pikachu reserve with a Pikachu RV that looks suspiciously close to the incomplete Dream Park. There's definitely a possibility that this area replaces the Dream Park in Ultra Sun and Moon, and while I don't hate the idea, I think having a Jurassic Pokemon Park would be a little bit cooler in my opinion. Number 4, Explorable Ultra Space. One of the moments I loved from the original Sun and Moon was when towards the end of the game, you and Lily went to a parallel dimension known as Ultra Space. I've always been a huge fan of alternate dimensions and realities within fiction, and journeying to the home of the Ultra Beasts was one of my favorite surprises in the games. Unfortunately, even though I like the idea behind it and all the story events that happened there, you really didn't get to explore this strange environment, which I thought was a little bit disappointing. You got to see a small portion of the dimension's strange, twisted world, but ultimately you were thrust into a cutscene before getting a good look at it or getting to do any kind of exploration. This is where I hope Ultra Sun and Moon does things a little bit differently. You can still have the story of the player and Lily journeying to Ultra Space to stop Lusamine in place, but I really want them to expand the area in-game and let the player explore it before the story cutscene and battle happens. Kind of what I'd like to see is something akin to the Distortion world from Pokemon Platinum. You'd arrive in Ultra Space knowing that somewhere in here is Guzma and Lusamine, and then you would have to explore the depths of this maze-like dimension to try and find them. They could also have Ultra Beasts attacking you while exploring to really put the pressure on. While it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me if Ultra Sun and Moon didn't expand on Ultra Space, I think it would be a huge missed opportunity. Ultra Space is one of the more unique environments in the Alola games, and I hope they let us explore it a little more intimately this time around. Number 3, gyms returning. Having gyms in Ultra Sun and Moon has been talked about ad nauseum by everybody for a while now, so I won't spend too long talking about this pick. Basically, in the original Sun and Moon, there are a number of empty lots scattered throughout Alola, and that's caused a lot of speculation that they could potentially be future gym locations in Ultra Sun and Moon, due to the games having an alternate storyline with a few additions to it. While it's impossible to say right now if these theories will end up being true, at least for myself, I would love to see gyms make their return in these games. In fact, when you think about it, the framework for gyms is already there. The 7 trial captains all specialize in a specific type, so they could easily be adapted into gym leaders, and could also use their trial's totem Pokemon or a Pokemon part of its evolution family on their gym teams. Now I know people are going to bring up a couple of problems with this idea, such as how the Ghost Trial Captain Acerola is a member of the Elite Four in Sun and Moon, and that there's only 7 trial captains when there needs to be 8 gym leaders, but I think these problems are very easily fixed. As I brought up earlier, Ultra Sun and Moon are said to have alternate stories, so perhaps Acerola never becomes a member of the Elite Four in these games, and maybe somebody like Guzma or Ryuki could take over the position of 8th gym leader. Slight side note here, but the thought of Guzma being a bug-type gym leader makes me want gyms to be in these games 1000% more. Imagine how awesome his gym theme would be. I guess before I move on to my next pick on this list, I should probably talk about what could happen to trials if gyms are reintroduced. Whether you love or hate Alola's trials, there's no denying that they're one of the big things that sets Alola apart from other regions and helps give it a very unique tone and atmosphere. While I think that gyms could possibly replace trials full stop, I also think there's a possibility the two might exist together in Alola. How cool would it be if during the main story you still went through and did trials, but once you became the champion, all the trial captains became gym leaders that you could go challenge in the post-game? It would be a neat way to blend the two worlds of trials and gyms together while also getting the experience of both of them. Looping back to just gym leaders being in the region with no trial captains at all, I really don't think it's that implausible of a thing Game Freak could include. They've done many surprising things in sequel and remix games before, so I'm still holding out hope that we could potentially see gyms show up in Ultra Sun and Moon. Number 2. Cut down on the intro segment / tutorial. While there's definitely a lot of things I enjoyed in Pokemon Sun and Moon, such as the great characters, tropical region, and phenomenal soundtrack, there was also a few things I wasn't too crazy about as well. I won't get too deep into all that stuff right now because I'm generally trying to keep this video pretty upbeat, but I do want to talk about one problem I had specifically that I hope Game Freak addresses in Ultra Sun and Moon, which is the beginning sequence and kind of tutorial section on the first island. Now, I don't know if anybody else felt this way, but the beginning of Sun and Moon kind of dragged on a little bit too long for me. I like that they were taking the time to set up the region's lore as well as all the characters that would be present throughout the rest of the game, but in my opinion, I think they might have spent a little bit too long setting up everything, which made the introduction segment feel kind of slow to me. Normally, in other Pokemon games, you can get through what I call the tutorial section in about 30 minutes. This includes getting your starter, talking with important characters, learning how to battle and catch Pokemon, and challenging your first gym. During this time, the game does feel a little bit slow, but after you beat the first gym, the game picks up considerably. In Sun and Moon, what I consider to be the tutorial section, which is everything leading up to Howl's City, can take up to roughly an hour or longer, potentially being double what it takes in older Pokemon games. Normally, I wouldn't be too against a slow start like this, but most of that time is spent in cutscenes or reading dialogue and not actually feeling like you're making progress in the games. Now, before anybody gets too mad at me for saying all this, I do want to say that I understand and appreciate what Game Freak was going for here. They were obviously taking a much more cinematic approach with the games, which meant that there was a lot of cutscenes and dialogue setting up the region, characters, and storyline, which for somebody like me who really enjoys Pokemon's lore and narrative, I was definitely on board for that. If we didn't spend so much time getting to know Lily at the start of the game, then everything she does later on might not have made as much of an impact, so I definitely like what they did here. It's just that, at times, it felt like I was getting lost in a sea of cutscenes and dialogue that, while I was interested in it, I think could have been slightly shortened and still had the same effect. That's actually what I'm really hoping Ultra Sun and Moon does. Take the introduction and tutorial segments that the original games had, and just revise and shorten them into something that feels a little more manageable lengthwise. In closing, let me just say once again that I really did enjoy Sun and Moon, even though I had a few issues with the slower opening and tutorial. The character development and tone they set up were great, and I feel like if Ultra Sun and Moon make a few small revisions and changes to this opening section to make it shorter and flow better, Ultra Sun and Moon will be even greater than I'm sure they already are. And my number 1 pick is more post-game content. If there's one thing I've always been a little bit disappointed with in recent Pokemon games, it's the post-game content. Now don't get me wrong, the stuff you can do after beating the League in Sun and Moon is fine, such as the Battle Tree and Ultra Beast side quest, but in my opinion, I don't think it quite compares to some of the past Pokemon games. In previous generations, after becoming champion, we've had things like the Battle Frontier, small side quests involving the evil team of the region, brand new areas to explore, a tournament that had many of the past gym leaders, and at one point there was even an entire other region you could challenge. While I don't necessarily want all of this stuff added into Ultra Sun and Moon's post-game, I do hope they take a few notes from past generations to really expand and enhance our after-League activities. If you want me to get into what I would specifically want, I think having a 5th island the player could go to after becoming the champion would be fantastic. They could have new areas to explore on this island, Pokemon you didn't see on your main journey, maybe have some kind of small storyline or quest involving Team Skull, and they could also include the Battle Tree, or if we want to get really hopeful here, a full-fledged Battle Frontier on this island too. Alright, maybe wanting a brand new Battle Frontier is a little bit of a stretch, but at the very least I do hope they add in a few new areas and side quests we can do after defeating the League. And that's my list! These are 5 of the things that I really hope we see in Ultra Sun and Moon. Granted, some of them might not be the most realistic things to want or expect, but if they end up happening, I'll be over the moon in excitement. Anyways, what do you guys think? Do you agree with this list? Maybe you disagree. Feel free to leave your own thoughts and wants for Ultra Sun and Moon in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I'll catch you later.